So excellent news for Batocera fans. We have just got Batocera 39 and this version is known as Painted Lady. So before I start today's setup guide for this, if you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation setup guides like this one right now you're watching. Also helps my channel a lot, plus you get notified each time I release a new setup guide. So yes, I covered Batocera 38 probably around 4 or 5 months ago, and some people's had issues with version 38 and some's been fine with it. So let's get on to this. This is going to be the second update video I've done today. Earlier on today I actually uploaded Emulator for Windows, and that's the latest version which actually released today as well. So anyways, let's get on with this one. What we're going to do is head over to batocera.org, and here it is, shiny and bright, get Batocera Linux 39. Before you go into this and actually download it, you might consider taking a look at the changelog. So obviously the changelog is going to give it the title, which is obviously Painted Lady. It's going to give us some special notes, and it's going to give us all the changes and what's been added. So plenty of features which has been added to RetroArch, to different modes of support for guns, that type of thing. So lots there to look at, including lots of fixes for controls. So yeah, Batocera 39 is a very good release, so it seems. And here we go, RetroArch is now been updated to 1.16.0.3. Lots of changes here, including big emu. So what we're going to do then is actually go back and download it. So if we go get Batocera Linux 39. Now this setup guide is going to be for desktop PC, or if you're running a laptop, that's going to be fine as well. So what we're going to do is just go to download. It's just over 3 GB in size, so what I'm going to do whilst I'm waiting is grab some flashing software. I'm also going to be using a USB stick, that's a SanDisk for this. So as always, I'm going to get myself a copy of Balena Etcher, and what this will do is actually flash that Batocera 39 image onto my USB stick. So what I'm going to do is just go to download Etcher, and I'm going to download the portable version for this. So if I just go to download. Somebody was asking me the other day, what's the difference between installer and portable? So installer means that it's going to be installed to your computer literally, and portable just means that you're going to get a file or within a single folder, so everything's self-contained without the need of installing it. Now, ideally, to use Batocera, if you've got a wealth of games, I would suggest at least say a 64 GB. If you're looking to pack it out, then you're obviously looking at well over 500 GB for the size. I also recommend a USB 3 rather than an old school USB 2. Transfer speeds on USB 3 are a lot quicker, so I seriously recommend you getting one of them. Okay, so we finally downloaded Batocera 39, so I've got the image just here ready to flash, and I've also downloaded Balena Etcher. So what I need to do is open up Balena Etcher just by double left clicking. So here we go, the first thing we're going to want to do is go to Flash from File, and we need to point this to where our Batocera 39 image is, where I've just downloaded this from. So it's on my desktop, so I'm going to go to Desktop, and if I just scroll down, I'm going to find it here at the bottom. So double left click. Now the next part you need to pay attention to is where to flash it to. So if you've got a few different USB drives attached to your computer, then just make sure you select the correct one. So if I go to change, the only drive I've got attached to it is external, is the only one I've got in, which is what I'm going to be using. So this is in location G, and that's fine. So I'm going to just make sure this is selected, and I'm going to select one and just go to flash. Now this can take a considerable amount of time to flash, so please be patient. And whilst we're waiting for this to flash, let's head over to Retro Achievements, and I'll leave the link in my description. And what we can do is actually link this with Batocera. So Retro Achievements is going to give you little achievement pop-ups for particular retro games. It's got a very nice community, and they're always uploading, or rather updating, new achievements to get. So anyways, I'll leave the link in my description, and you can sign up with this and then use your username and password inside of Batocera. Next thing I suggest you doing is signing up for free and registering with Screen Scraper. So again, just like Retro Achievements, once we're inside of Batocera, we can actually scrape artwork using Screen Scraper database. But to do this, you do need to register for this. And again, just like Retro Achievements, once we're inside of Batocera 39, we can then use this login in order to download artwork in preview videos. So again, link's going to be in my description for this. Okay, if we check out Ballina Etcher again, after it's finished flashing, it will go through a validating process. As we can see right now, we're on 68%. Now, I'll likely say 99% of the time, you don't really have to wait for this. So, in this case, I'm going to just go to skip. And this is then going to display what's actually on the USB drive. So what I'm going to do next then is actually add some games onto USB device. So once we're in Batocera, we can easily transfer some games over. So I'm going to just plug in another USB drive. So I've now attached my USB drive, and what I'm going to do on here, on the root, and the root means the first thing that you see once you plug it in, I'm going to just create a couple of new folders in here. So new folder, and I'm going to call this folder NES. And the other folder I'm going to create is going to be, say, Mega Drive. And on my desktop, I've got a NES game, and I've also got a Mega Drive game. So Mega Drive game, I'm going to put into that Mega Drive folder. And the NES game, I'm going to pop into that NES folder. Now, let me give you a little heads up. If you do have BIOS files and you want to play things like PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, all those systems which require BIOS files, just do this. Just give your folder the name BIOS. It will just make things easier once we're in Batocera in order to transfer things over. So what I'm going to do now is unplug everything and turn on the laptop with my USB stick inserted. Okay, so inserted into my laptop, before I boot up, I've got a controller connected. I've also got a mouse connected, which is wired. And I've, of course, got my Batocera image on my flash drive just there. So we need to boot into BIOS mode. Now, computers are going to differ. Now, I'm using an ASUS VivaBook. So in order for me to access my BIOS menu on this particular motherboard or computer, what I'm going to do is hold on to the F2 key and then press on power. And then that should then take us into BIOS. And here we go. So this is my BIOS menu. And from here, what I need to do is actually go over to boot priority. And I can see under just there, it says UEFI. And this is actually my external drive with Batocera. So what I need to do is just change priority of this. So when I boot up the computer, it's going to read straight from that USB drive rather than the installed operating system, which is Windows 11. So what I also need to do is go to advanced mode. And if I go up to security, you should see something very similar on the computers you're going to be using called Secure Boot. If you open up Secure Boot Control, just make sure this one is disabled, and then we can save. Then I'm going to press Escape key in order to exit. And save configuration and reset if I press OK. And it's going to display on the top left corner boot in Batocera. At that point, you know you're in. And here we go. So it's just resizing things, that's fine. And that's it, we're finally into Batocera 39. So I'm using my Google Stadia controller for this. And of course we can use left and right on D-pad. And generally it will work, but we need to actually set this up correctly. So if I press start on my Stadia controller, which is going to bring up main menu from here, if I go down to controller and Bluetooth settings, the first option I'm going to see is controller mapping. If I press my A button on this, it's going to tell us that we can map a controller from here. So if I press A on OK, it's going to give us configure input, one gamepad detected. So what I need to do is quite literally keep my finger pressed on a button, and that's going to bring up configuring. So from here, it's going to tell us south, and it says press anything. So in this case, I'm going to press my A button, which is, well, my south button. Then I'm going to go my east, north, west, start, select, and so on until I get to the bottom. Now let me just remind you, if you're new to this type of system, this type of front-end system, your hotkey, which is the bottom option here, exit us from game. So whichever button you press, just remember which button that is. And if I go to OK, so that's the controller setup. And if I press B to come out of here, what we're going to do next is go down to Scraper. What we're going to do is now set up Scraper. So during the process of flashing the image onto USB, I did mention going over to Screen Scraper, and here is where we can set our settings. But before we do that, we actually need to connect this to our network. So what we're going to do is go to Network Settings, which is in Main Menu. And what we're going to do from here is just go down to Enable Wi-Fi. And that's going to just pause for a few seconds. It's not going to crash, so just be patient with this. Now, Wi-Fi SID is going to be the name of your network. So if I just go into my Wi-Fi SID, I can find my network just here. And then obviously your Wi-Fi key is your network's password. So I'm going to just enter my password in. Okay, once you've entered your Wi-Fi key password, just go down one and go to back. Now, when this is finally set up, you should see in the top right a little Wi-Fi symbol, and there we go. So Wi-Fi enabled. Sometimes it means that you got to reset or restart Batocera, but in this case, it's identified my network straight away. So what we're going to do then is go down to Scraper and scrape from Screen Scraper. If I go to Scraper Settings, right at the bottom, we're going to find username. And this is what I was talking about just now over on the Screen Scraper website. We need a username and password to pop into this. So I'm going to just put in my username. Okay, once you've done that, we just go down to back. And that's all registered now, we're signed up. So when I go on to the scraping part a little later on, we'll see how that works. Also, under Scraper Settings, we've got a selection of options here. So your top option will say Image Source. I recommend selecting Box 3D. And under Logo Source, I personally recommend Marquee. Now, just below it, under Scrape From, we can enable different pieces of artwork to scrape, including video preview. So if I enable video, and I'm also going to enable fan art, what this means is that if there isn't official artwork for particular games, then it will scrape fan art instead, which is better than nothing. I'm also going to download manual, and that's it. So if we come out of here, now let's actually test if the network is working when I just set it up. So to test this, what I'm going to do is download a theme, and you can do this through Main Menu. If I press Start to access this, if I go down to Updates and Downloads, Themes, we got an array of themes just here, which we can download. Now, personally, I think A Touch of Glass is a wicked theme, but it's very big. And obviously, you're going to want to preserve as much hard drive space to put your games on. So I'm going to go for something a little bit more basic, which is only 34 megabyte. That's a Star Wars theme. So if I install this by pressing A, and top right corner, you can see it's downloading. And it's been installed successfully. So if I press my B button to exit, and again, in order to apply this theme, from Main Menu, I'm going to just go up to User Interface Settings, Theme Set, and you'll find your downloaded themes here. And here we go, Star Wars. And if I press back, which is going to be my B button, and here we go, we have now got Star Wars Stormtrooper. So next thing I'm going to talk to you about is actually using retro achievements. So again, just like Screen Scraper, is something else you can add. So in order to use this, you obviously need to register with retro achievements, which I told you about just now. So from here, what we're going to do is just go up to Game Settings. If we just go to the second option down, that's retro achievement settings. What we need to do here is enable retro achievements, and then you simply pop in your username and your password. And once you've done that, it will then connect you. So when you play your games, it will then give you rewards for particular games, that is. And we also got a plenitude of options here, such as unlocking sounds once we get a retro achievement. So that's it. And whilst I'm thinking of it, we can actually customize how this theme looks. So if I go back to main menu, user interface settings, theme configuration, I can then do different things. So for example, theme background, I've got different mixes here. If I use mix 5 and press B to come out, there we go. And we can do that as much as we want. So mix 3, and there we go. So lots of different styles there. And just again, user interface settings, theme configuration, and default grid size, which means that when we add our games, the icons, or the grids rather, the games will become small or larger depending on the grid size of that. And if you just want to set your theme back to standard or default, then just go down to reset customizations and you're back to scratch. Now, if you want extra help for buttons or anything like that with Batocera, if you press the select button on your controller, quick access, we can go to view user manual. If I press A to select this, we can then access the Batocera Linux user guide. And it's going to tell you lots of different button configurations. So there's lots of information there, including how to use Kodi, retro achievements, which I've covered, and screen scraper. So some useful information there. So next thing we need to know then is obviously how to put our games on here. So I'm going to press F1 on my keyboard. And that's going to bring us to this screen. Now it's at this point where you're going to need to plug in your USB drive with your games on, which is what I've done just now with the NES and the Mega Drive. And this is exactly what the mouse comes in useful for. We need the mouse connected in order to play around with things here. So my USB drive, my games, is listed on the left at the bottom. It says new volume. And my games are in here. So I've got my NES folder. So what I need to do is just right click on that game, go to copy, and then I need to go up to ROMs, which is a folder on the left hand side. And you're going to find lots of subfolders in here, and this represents each system that Batocera covers. So obviously I need to find my NES folder, which is here, and I'm going to just right click and left click on paste, and that's now pasted my NES game in. And again, I'm going to go back to my drive I've just attached, new volume, and this time I'm going to go to Mega Drive, and again right click, copy, and go to ROMs folder on the left hand side, and find the Mega Drive folder. And then again, just right click and paste. And that's it. So if you're using more advanced systems which require BIOS, largely your BIOS files will go into the BIOS folder on the left hand side loosely. But in particular instances, we will have to put BIOS files in the folders just here. But like I say, largely most of your BIOS files can just be pasted loosely into this field just here. So what we need to do next is go up to File, which is on your top left hand side, and then just go down to Close Window. So we're now back into Batocera, but we don't see our games appear, they're nowhere to be found. So what we need to do to make the game show is just go to Main Menu by pressing Start, Game Settings, and I'm going to press A, Update Game List, press A again, Really Update Game List, yes. Now if I go to my Genesis folder, I've now got my game here, but we've got no artwork. And I should also find my Nintendo NES game in my NES folder, and here we go. So what I need to do then is scrape the artwork for these games. So I'm going to press my Start button, and if I go down to Scraper, I've already set this up. So I'm going to go to Scrape now. And in the top right hand side of the screen, you should see Scraping. And what this is doing is just connecting to the Screen Scraper database and collecting our artwork for us. Okay, so scraping finished. So what we need to do, it says update game list to apply changes. Again, if I press Start and go down one to Game Settings, update game list, really update game list, yes. So if I go back into my Nintendo NES folder, my NES game now has artwork in the preview video. And if I go into my Genesis folder, which is of course Mega Drive if you're in certain parts of the world, my Sonic game is now got art in the preview video. So what I'm going to do next is actually open up one of these games. So if I open up my NES game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I used to play the hell out of as a kid, I'm just going to press A to open up this. And here we go, complete with what's called an overlay on each side. Okay, and using the hotkeys is just exit me from that. So if you're still confused with hotkeys, when I went to map my controller just now, right at the bottom it said hotkey, and that's the key, or rather the button we press in order to exit the games. So if I then go over to my Mega Drive game, which is in my Genesis folder, once I'm inside a folder, if I press select and go down to advanced system options and press A, I can change different things here, such as the game aspect ratio. I can change it from 4:3, which is its current ratio, to something like 4, which is going to give us a full screen. If I go to game renderings and shaders, shader set, I can actually apply something called curvature to give us an old curvature CRT TV look. If I apply curvature, and we can actually configure controllers for these systems individually. So if I go down further to controllers, I can actually map out controller 1 input map in here for Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis. So with those two settings applied, if I open up Sonic the Hedgehog 2, now as you can see just now, the game was playing fine and the CRTV look is there, but the overlays is obscuring it. So what we need to do is access the RetroArch quick menu, which is powering this game. And in fact, RetroArch is going to power probably around 85-90% of your games with Batocera. So what I've done to access this menu is hold down my left analog stick and my right bumper. And what we can do from here is very good stuff with RetroArch. So if I use my down button on my D-pad, I'm going to come across an option here called on-screen overlay. If I turn this off just by pressing A on my controller and press B to come out, and again, and I'm going to press A on quick menu, and if I press A again to resume, the overlay is now gone, and as we can see, I've got curvature. Okay, something else I'm going to show you is from main menu. If we just scroll down to updates and downloads again, if we select content downloader, we can download some homebrew games from here, some extra bezels in order to make our games look good. And there's lots here to take a look at. Like I said, lots of homebrew games for Game Boy. And if we come out of here and go down to the bezel project, we can download specific bezel packs for things like Commodore 64, Game Boy Advance. They are pretty sizable, some of these, but we can apply them and make games look a lot better. Now, if you get any issues with your sound output, if we just go again from main menu down to system settings, if we just scroll down, we're going to find audio output. just make sure the correct output device is selected here, and also under your audio profile, just experiment and eventually you'll find the one which is going to work and produce sounds for you. Now, in order to actually install Batocera onto an older computer, if you've got no use of that older computer, we can actually install it from the USB stick which we flashed. And you can do this under install on new disk, target device, and then you're obviously going to find the hard drive for that computer or laptop you want to install Batocera onto. I'm not going to select this because obviously this is my main computer, Windows 11, I do all my videos on. And we're also going to want to make sure that target architecture is selected as times 86_64, or someone rightly corrected me a while back, x86_64. And then you go to are you sure, enable this and install. And what that's going to do is then install Batocera onto your hard drive, so you will no longer need to use your BIOS menu in order to use Batocera. It will actually boot straight into it. So if I then close down, so to exit correctly out of Batocera, main menu, quit, and I'm going to go down to shut down system, yes. So if, like me, you're just going to use this and you're not actually going to install it to your hard drive, then we're going to need to go back into BIOS in order for you to boot back into your operating system. So obviously you're going to need to remove your flash disk with the Batocera image on it, and again enter into your BIOS screen. So in my case, F2 in power button. And we'll then see under boot priority, USB flash drive is gone, but we still need to make sure that under advanced mode, security, secure boot, we need to make sure secure boot control is enabled. And once you've done this, we can then exit out. Just remember to save configuration and reset. And this should then bring you back into your normal operating system. And here we go. And that's it for the full Batocera 39 setup guide today. So if you're new to my channel, hit notification, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation setup guides like this one. And if you're interested in Emulator for Windows, also check that setup guide I did for that earlier on. Also check me out on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. And just to remind you, I've got several playlists containing setup guides for RetroArch, RetroBat, Launchbox, as well as many other standalone emulation setup guides. But anyways, thanks for watching. Until next time, stay retro.